You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there and welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful experience wherever or whenever you are listening. Thank you for pressing play today. I am excited about the cooler weather. It is fall in North Texas. There is a nip in the air and I am here for it. It's not exactly pretty. We don't get the vibrant colors of the leaves changing, which I truly miss. It's like we go from green to dead. I like a little transition. Oh well. It is what it is. I'm embracing the cool temps for sure. For that, I am grateful. And I've said this before, tapping into gratitude is such a healing experience. Whatever it may be for you in the moment, take the time to extend appreciation for something in your life. It makes a world of difference in your mindset, really sets the tone for your day. And it is November, after all. We are entering a time of year when we tend to focus more on gratitude. I want to challenge you to incorporate that practice all year long, every day. Give it a try. And when you do this, it really does create a shift. You might even see things about yourself, about others, and just your surroundings in general that you have overlooked, maybe even taken for granted or perceived as an imperfection. Or someone else perceives an imperfection in you and they let you know about it. Humans make assumptions. That's what we do. And we tend to make them toward others based on our own experiences, not truly appreciating or even taking into consideration the unique expression of our individuality. Those expressions could be behavior, appearance, really anything. Now, I've talked about perfection itself being an illusion. I believe it was episode 43. It's just this made-up ideal of who we should be, how we should show up, and what we should look like. Notice all of the shoulds. And also remember that we tend to use should as a form of judgment toward ourselves and others. It's what we do. Simply a thing to be aware of. It's part of our conditioning in this life experience. We make judgments and we make assumptions about what is perfect or imperfect in this world. And we create these boxes, these neat little containers to fit in and just make blanket assumptions. It's so interesting that we do this. Again, something to notice, give some attention to. Let me share with you an experience that I've had recently regarding my son's school pictures. It really baffled me, but I think there could be a number of reasons this happened. I'm still working through it in my mind, making my own assumptions, and really catching myself. See, he has this mole on the right side of his nose. We also like to refer to it as a beauty mark. It's a pretty prominent feature of his adorable face. And he was born with that mark. And I remember the medical staff circling him to inspect it. I remember what I felt then, and it was, leave it. I love that mole. And of course, they didn't find anything wrong with the mole, and it has remained perfectly intact for 13 years now. My experience with school pictures up to this point has been that you can request photo retouching for an upcharge. smooth out the imperfections. And I have done that a couple of times just for fun. This is the first year that I've seen the retouching is just automatically included, like a gift. Like some things I hear in my own industry from time to time, over-delivering, going above and beyond. Look, what you used to pay extra for, I'm now giving you for free. And that can be a wonderful thing sometimes. Cool. Others, not so much. So, imperfection is actually the term used when we're talking about photo retouching, I believe. We'll smooth out any imperfections. Cuts, scrapes, bruises, pimples. Okay, imperfections. Got it. Well, you've probably guessed by now that my son lost his mole in the retouching process this year. We were all a bit taken aback by that because it's never happened before. In 13 years of school pictures, because I'm counting preschool too, never has that mark on his face been erased. Because it is a beauty mark, after all. And listen, I have no idea what he may have endured up to this point from his peers, who may have made fun of it. He is really a very well-adjusted human. I truly believe that. And he can withstand a little ribbing. He just lets it roll off. In fact, I often find out about mocking or teasing or even just mean-spirited comments directed toward him. I often find out about that from other moms or teachers. He is so genuinely unbothered by that shit that it's not even a blip on his radar when he's telling me how his day was. And I adore that about him. I really do. I also adore that mole on his face. So I got the digital image in my inbox, and since his physical pictures haven't yet been delivered, I was the one to show him. And the first thing he did was touch his nose, like he was checking to see if his mole was still there. And then he just twisted his face up and gave a general why expression, like he was genuinely confused. And I didn't know what to do about it, honestly. I just sat with it for several days, almost a week. How does this happen? Who gets to decide what an imperfection is? I did start a thread on Facebook about it, with his permission, of course. I shared the photo and asked what was wrong with this picture. And I was shocked at how many people spotted the problem right away. In fact, I think my first friend to comment said something along the lines of, did they actually edit out the most distinguishable feature of your son's face? Yeah, they did. But who is they? I don't even know who to be mad at. And to be honest, I'm not really mad. I'm just super curious about it. So for all of my friends who expect me to be outraged and give someone a piece of my mind, I'm not going to do that. Seek first to understand, right? Help me understand how this happens. How are you all making these decisions about what a blemish or an imperfection is? And so a couple of perspectives that were shared on that thread that I posted included the blanket removal of freckles, which is another why those experiences were shared. And one friend suggested that maybe it looked like a wound or a scab. And another said maybe there's no human making the decision at all, which also makes sense. Maybe the service is now included because it's a complete wash from a computer that just makes all the pictures look perfect. All of these things are possible. Bottom line, we're stuck with those pictures. There is no reverting back to the original. I tried that. What can I do? Well, I can write special instructions for next picture day to leave the mole on his face alone. Whatevs. So, I don't know if it was an actual human who made the assumption or whether it was AI. Either way, well, now we know what he looks like without that mole. And it's just strange looking. I'm not even going to get all wrapped up in emotion on this one. It is what it is. I am mildly disappointed that there's no path to correct the assumption. But we can still have fun with the story. It's all about your perspective. What you find offensive, what you see as imperfect, that might not be what others see, and vice versa. What our entire family and a small army of friends and acquaintances see as a beauty mark, someone, somewhere, or something sees as a blemish. And here's the thing to keep in mind always: it's not about you, it's about them. I think my son understands that. I truly do. Just in his behaviors and the way that he handles things like assumptions or even judgment from others, he kind of has this whole "that's not my problem" attitude. As much as I do think my husband and I contribute to this in his upbringing, I also believe it is a large part of who he is. He came into our lives this way. That is amazing. That said, what if you don't feel as equipped to handle adversity, assumptions, or accusations? Like, I had several friends who responded to that thread on school pictures saying, "I would go off," or "this makes me so mad." And why is that? Why do we immediately go into offense mode? I think it's because we get entangled in this notion that imperfections are bad in ourselves, but when it comes to our children, we get a lot feistier, go into protective mode. But here's the thing: we don't always have to do that. Part of this growing up experience includes learning how to navigate things on your own. The same applies to your continued growth as an adult, and I'm talking about internal growth now. I think when we stop learning, we stop growing internally, and we're merely existing, just riding out the clock until we die. That's why I absolutely love to keep learning and challenging myself. So the real question here is, how do you react when someone highlights an imperfection of yours? What are you thinking? What emotions come up? Does it depend on whether it's a behavior or your appearance? Does that make a difference? I've shared before that I had a similar experience with my own mole above my eyebrow when a friend reached across the table over dinner and said, "What's that?" Like it was the first time she had actually noticed it. And I did feel defensive in that moment. I remember that. I also remember saying, "That's a part of me is what it is. Damn it." And we got into a whole discussion about whether I should have it removed and why I didn't want to, why I didn't see it as a problem. I didn't see it as something that needed to be removed. I still don't. I see it the same way now as I did then. But I do remember tensing up for just a hot second, like, why are you judging my imperfection in this moment? It was an interesting experience. Then, of course, being judged by your behaviors can also sting, or your accent, or something else about yourself that you might not be able to change easily or at all. Like your height, for example. Can't change that. But we'll walk around hating on ourselves for being too short or too tall because somewhere along the way we created the assumption that we are in comparison to others, in comparison to what is beautiful, or even what is just normal. We go on offense for our children or those that we care about, but when it comes to ourselves, we go on defense. And the reason for this, in my opinion, is that we haven't cultivated our own self-worth in order to withstand the judgments of others without creating a story around all of the ways that we aren't good enough. That perfectionism complex. If everyone else sees me as perfect, then maybe I can believe that about myself. Or if not perfect, at least worthy, right? Listen, our imperfections are gifts. That is one of my favorite books by Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection, because I love that perspective. Shifting your view of the world and the people around you, and especially your view of yourself as being perfectly imperfect. learning how to embrace your imperfections instead of defending them, or trying to change those that, quite honestly, don't need changing. It's about really digging into getting to know yourself instead of this version of you, this avatar you have created in order to be accepted. Because that notion in particular, if I look a certain way or act a certain way, then I will be loved, admired, and accepted, is a falsehood. Remember, we have zero control over how others perceive us. We might have a little influence, or we might have none at all. How others see you is through their own lens. So the more that we try to prove ourselves worthy to others, the more disenchanted we become with ourselves when it doesn't happen. And really, what we're trying to do, as Brené explains in The Gifts of Imperfection, is to avoid those difficult emotions. She writes, feeling shamed, judged, and blamed, and the fear of those feelings are realities of the human experience. Perfectionism actually increases the odds that we'll experience painful emotions and often leads to self-blame. It's my fault. I'm feeling this way because I'm not good enough. To overcome perfectionism, we need to be able to acknowledge our vulnerabilities to the universal experiences of shame, judgment, and blame. Develop shame resilience and practice self-compassion. When we become more loving and compassionate with ourselves, and we begin to practice shame resilience, we can embrace our imperfection. It is in the process of embracing our imperfections that we find our truest gifts: courage, compassion, and connection. Ah, yes, if you know anything about Brené Brown, she is well known for her studies on shame. And that is one of the most difficult emotions to face. It isn't the same as guilt. Guilt comes when you've done something bad. Shame says, I am bad. I am broken. I am defective. I am less than. I am unworthy. And depending upon where we are in our journey at the time that someone calls out one of your imperfections, we can set off on a shame spiral. Or we can try to transfer the blame back on the person who said or did whatever it was. Or we could likely employ any of our numbing tactics through food, alcohol, shopping, whatever your go-to for self-soothing might be. What we rarely do is use that opportunity for some good old self-reflection and self-compassion. We can soothe ourselves in healthy ways if we are willing to open ourselves up to the possibility of it. If we are willing to hold awareness that it actually is not the acceptance of others that we need as much as we need to acknowledge for ourselves that we are in fact whole, worthy, and wonderful beings. And this doesn't become true because someone else says it to be true. It is true because you are here, because you exist. It is true for all of us. Every one of us was born worthy, and every one of us is still worthy. We've simply come to believe the lies that surround a vision of perfection that we'll never be able to meet. So we hate on ourselves instead, or we hate on them. Like, I'm supposed to go after the photography company or some unsuspecting customer service rep because my son's mole was edited out of his pictures. How dare they? And I get it. I thought that for just a minute before I did that self-reflection that was about my own values and desires for the outcome. Really, this seems like a small issue in the grand scheme of things. Like, how much of my time and energy is it worth to raise hell with the company? I have a soft spot for customer service reps anyway, because I did a solid stint of call center work myself back in the day. I have been yelled at for an item being out of stock. I have been told that I've ruined Christmas. It's a tough job because you're often interacting with people at their worst. who are showing you the worst parts of themselves. So now that I'm on the other side of it, I only want to show up with grace, compassion, and understanding if I ever have to contact a company with a grievance. It may seem like a small thing, or it may seem like a really big deal. It's all in your perception. And my initial thought with the pictures was, this is a really big deal because they made an assumption and it was wrong. Now we are stuck with pictures that don't even look like him. Then I sat with it for a few days and contemplated whether or not that was true. Is it wrong, or is it just what it is? Am I really stuck with them, or am I now having valuable conversations around the concept of imperfection because of this quote-unquote error in judgment? I choose to see the latter now. As I shared earlier, some of my friends even came up with thoughts I hadn't even considered. So, oh yeah, that's an interesting viewpoint. Thanks. So I know this is a very simplistic example that I've used today, but the same thing applies to what you view as the bigger deals in life, where people judge you or make assumptions about you. They don't mean anything about you. And at the same time, it's always an opportunity to explore yourself, to really examine who you are and the type of person you want to grow into, to become. See, I much prefer the compassionate version of Sunny to the raging maniac version of Sunny. And I think those who cross paths with me would agree. And I'm not implying that it is wrong to rage a little. I've talked about that recently. We all need that release from time to time. What I'm saying is that I'm just not feeling it in this instance. Am I a little bit disappointed? Sure. But again, it's going to be in our memory banks of that time that his beauty mark was edited out, and we'll probably laugh about it when we look back on these pictures. Remember what Brene said, it is in the process of embracing our imperfections that we find our truest gifts, courage, compassion, and connection. We don't have to feel ashamed or judged or any of those other emotions when it comes to taking a look at our imperfections. That is a choice. Every single day and with every experience that we have, we are given opportunities to choose what we want to make things mean about ourselves. We are given choices as to how we view the assumptions of others when it comes to exposing our imperfections. Are we going to spin out or let it roll right off? Or is it going to be something in between? What kind of energy do you want to bring to your interactions with others if they've made a mistake? What are the ways in which you can choose compassion and deeper connection today, whether it's with a stranger or a loved one? Most importantly, how can you extend compassion to yourself in those moments that you feel judged or misunderstood? How can we view those as opportunities for growth? Oh, the possibilities. As Rumi says, I am not this hair, I am not this skin, I am the soul that lives within. Remember that every human you encounter in life is your teacher. I have already learned some of the greatest lessons from my son. He actually exudes this quote, in my opinion. Is he perfect? Of course he is. And I can just see how brightly he shines. I can see how he truly enjoys life, and it's simply amazing to witness. I think he has learned far sooner than I did that there are things in life that we can choose to shrug right off. And all you have to do with the word imperfect is add an apostrophe and a space to make it mean I'm perfect, because you are, just as you are. Now, if you want to dig in a little deeper to exposing yourself to judgment, you can head over to my collaborative podcast, Moms Getting Mental, and hear my conversation with Leanna around what a horrible mom I am for having let him watch Squid Game. We watched it with him, okay? We didn't just turn him loose, but oh, that is a good one. I'm telling you, I had fun with that. It's another solid example of how our tendencies to go on offense or defense and really tear into one another if we think someone is doing it wrong. Choices, my friends, opportunities and choices. That is what I am here for. Check out my links and show notes for ways to connect. I would love to have a conversation with you. As we approach the holiday season, I still have openings for free sessions. No obligation, no strings. I just truly enjoy these interactions and I encourage you to give it a try. Now get out there and light up. Shine on.